Welcome to the 167th broadcast, part 3 of the T Rose Show. This is your host, Keith. Got a few things to talk about. Yes, we're going to go back and talk about the Law of Nations today a little bit further, but we have a few announcements to make. So let's go ahead and get started on that. We've got a series over. Let's go on to look inside the court. I'm going to go ahead and start that share again. All right. Let's look inside the courts within the United States and the fact that they mark people for murder when their employers are challenged. Just keep in mind, folks, this is a very serious issue. If you are called a sovereign citizen, they have marked you for murder, because this is what happens. What happens is next time you get pulled over, you'll have 15 to 20 cops all around you, and they'll try to kill you because they're told that you want to murder their families. That's how they're taught. That's how they're brainwashed. Really brainwashed into it. A lot of the communist cops are kind of stupid, so they use that as a smear word, okay, to try to get you to comply with their stupid orders. So, anyways, this is a 6-page affidavit. It talks about this whole issue and talks about the Continental Dollars and what they tried to do to try to discredit us. And here's the part 2, which is this right here. Let me go ahead. I don't know if it switched for me, so I'm going to start over on the share. This is part 2 with the actual notarized affidavit and the exhibit. So keep in mind that that's now official. Okay. Very good story. Tells you exactly what happened. It's only 6 pages. You might want to read it. Also, remember, there's some other. There's what they're trying to do is discredit us. We don't know exactly who's behind it, and really don't care because we know that we're real. They're putting groups on LinkedIn. One is the government of the United States of America trying to make it appear as if we're right there in the White House, that that's our address. They're trying to start crap, and if a judge or local judge or local cop, they're trying to keep the local judges and cops stupid or ignorant to this, and so they put this fake crap on LinkedIn. And there's one that says the General Post Office of the government of the United States of America. That's another group. It's a satanic group. That one's the satanic group up in Michigan, and they're trying to get. They probably hired to discredit us by the Republicans and Democrats. And then you've got another group doing the same thing, but there's like 17 people there, and I think that they're all fake. They're fake accounts because they don't want you to see that our Secretary of State has 2,500, if not more, connections on LinkedIn to generals and people all across the world. And then you've got our General Postmaster Council, who has over 9,000 connections on LinkedIn to various agencies, feds and all that. They don't want you to see that. So they're coming up with these fake ones, which is hilarious. And whenever you see the group, go into the employees, and if you see LinkedIn member, then another one, they'll have these fake profiles. The other ones will say LinkedIn member, no name or anything. That's a whole fake organization. So just letting you know about that. Okay, so yeah, take a look at this. This is 2 years in the making, this one right here. And what we talk about their employers, what we're saying is employers mean the bankers, Federal Reserve. When they're so-called challenged, they think they're challenged. I think they're mentally challenged. They have the courts mark you as a sovereign citizen. And then when you get pulled over, it's a very sophisticated situation. When you get pulled over, 15 cops, you make the wrong move, they shoot you because they think you're after their children. It's just a lot of brainwashing going on. Okay, let's take a look. Let me go ahead and drop these two. Now, I put this particular thing that was out there. It says, I'm a senior Chinese military intelligence officer. Folks, I don't know if that's true. As far worse than the media is telling you. The story has been floating around the internet. It says we can't confirm its validity. However, it might be worth looking into its origins because our search stopped at Reddit. So it was somebody put something on Reddit. And I don't know exactly if this is true or not because not everybody's dying over this. Everybody who gets this so-called coronavirus or bioweapon, not all of them are dying. People are surviving. They say it's just like having the flu, but it kind of gets children and old folks. Now, even if it was true, I don't live in fear. So I'm not going to let it scare me. Whatever happens, happens. Just because somebody says something like that, the way that this guy's talking, doesn't mean it's true. It could be something completely different. They do say it is more male Chinese men get it than anybody else. So I believe it's racially targeted, a racially targeted bioweapon. In other words, it only affects certain people or a certain race. So I don't know what's going on over there. I read it. I just said, okay, I'm not going to live in fear of this. If it happens, it happens. Whatever happens, that doesn't mean I'm just going to stop living and just wait. Okay. So, live on, guys. Just go about your daily lives. All right. Okay. I'm going to go over now. What I'm going to be going into tonight is I'm going to be going into more of a revamping of something, but I'm going to show you something in a different point of view, so that you get it. Okay. And it doesn't really. It's going to be very easy to understand. Not that everybody's stupid. What I'm saying is if you haven't studied for like 30 years, yeah, this is going to be like, okay, let me put it in this way so you get where I'm coming from, and I should be able to impart that. So that's what I'm trying to get done here. So what I want to show you is, all right, everybody knows about the Articles of Confederation of 1781. A lot of people do. They say, oh, it was inadequate and all this other kind of stuff. Now, let's go over to this one, which is Roosevelt's Communist Manifesto. I don't know if this switched once again, so I'm going to share and then redo it. Okay. Very short read on the Communist Manifesto. Okay. Let's reprint, blah, 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 blah. This is Roosevelt's Communist Manifesto. And he was trying to show you, it says Rockefeller Internationalist, a man whose misrules the world. Strange death of F.D. Roosevelt, history of Roosevelt, Delano dynasty, and blah, blah, blah. It goes into this. All right, so if anybody's ever seen this before, it gets very interesting. Everybody knows about this in the back of the dollar bill. Very short read, and this will lead right into the Law of Nations, and we're going to show you something here. All right, the above insignia of the Illuminati was adopted by Weishaupt at the time he founded the order in May 1st, 1776. This is what we're talking about here when we're talking about the Second Declaration. It was under Weishaupt, who was a radical communist. Back then they were called Illuminists, but today they're called communists. So communist and Illuminists are the same people. This has been a communist symbol on the back of the dollar bill since 1933. Okay, people don't know that. They just look at, oh, that's that's just a pyramid, pretty. Okay, they don't realize that's a communist symbol. It says it is that event that is memorialized by the MDCCLXXVI, which is right here at the bottom. Okay. Just look at the back of your dollar bill. You'll see it. At the base of the pyramid, and not the date of the signing of the Declaration of Independence as the uninformed have supposed. Okay? The significance of the design is as follows. The pyramid represents the conspiracy for destruction of the Catholic Church and establishment of a one world or UN dictatorship. Okay? The United Nations dictatorship. The secret of the order. The eye radiating in all directions is the all-spying eye that symbolizes the terroristic Gestapo-like espionage agency that Weishaupt set up under the name of insinuating brethren, okay, brethren, to guard the secret of the order and to terrorize the populace into accepting of its rule. That would be coronavirus. That would be all these viruses. Okay, that's the terrorizing. You will accept their rule if you know, whatever. This Ogpu and had its first workout in the reign of terror of the French Revolution, which it was instrumental in organizing. It's a source of amazement that the Catholic electorate tolerates the continuance of use of this insignia as part of the Great Seal of the U.S. And exactly because, well, it's because he's communist. That's why they let it happen. Annuit coeptis means our enterprise conspiracy has been crowned with success. Below, Novus Ordo Seclorum explains the nature of the enterprise, and it means a new world order or New Deal. Remember they came out with a New Deal? Okay. It should be noted that this insignia acquired Masonic significance only after merger of that order with Order of Illuminati at the Congress of Wilhelmsbad in 1782. Okay, now this had nothing to do with the original Articles of Confederation. Nothing. Completely separate. Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, Roosevelt, Kinsman, and Thomas Jefferson, ardent illuminist and defender of Adam Weishaupt, proposed the above as the reverse of the seal, on the face of which was the eagle symbol, to Congress. Remember, 1782, they were all under Articles of Confederation. So that's completely different, right? A separate Congress. Now, which was adopted on June 10th, 1782, an adoption of the Constitution, Congress decreed by Act of September 15th, 1789, which completely ignored what? A confederacy, which is, a confederacy is a federal republic, what you thought you had, not under a constitution. It was under the Articles of Confederation, and the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution were two completely separate documents because the Constitution was passed by a secret society. It wasn't a popular vote. So there was no chain of title, and there was no ceding anything of the 13 original states and any states after that to the United States, period. They didn't cede anything to them. Okay? So, by Act, September 15, 1789, its retention as the seal of the United States. It is stated, however, that the State Department, in its latest publication on the subject, that the reverse has never been cut and used as a seal, and that only the obverse bearing the eagle symbol has been used as official seal and coat of arms. Its first was published on the left of the reverse of the dollar bills at the beginning of the New Deal in 1933. So that's when the communists came over. Now, like I said, back in the day, Weishaupt was an illuminist, and today they're known as communists. So the word communist didn't exist back then. They were known as illuminist. It says, what is the meaning of the publication at the outset of the New Deal of this Gestapo symbol? Now they're trying to say it's a Nazi symbol, but it's the same thing, communism, Marxism, the whole deal. That had been so carefully suppressed up to the date that few Americans knew of its existence other than a Masonic symbol. It can only mean that the advent of the New Deal and the Illuminist, Socialist, Communist conspirators, followers of Professor Weishaupt, regarded their efforts as beginning to be crowned with success. In effect, this seal proclaims the peoples of the U.S. that the entire power of their government supports the conspiracy to undermine and destroy it, and the Constitution on which it rests. That is the government of traitors. Okay? So since what is the Constitution on which it rests? It could have been talking about the Constitution of the United States that undermines a federal republic, and not the Articles of Confederation that have been amended. So that's how they got you as a traitor. Everyone that keeps pushing the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the United States is not a document that is considered a charter that brings all of the states together. It's in essence, it is a aristocratic republic, which means that all the power is in the Senate. That's not a federal republic. Those are two different things. So since we started this, and since we started revamping the Articles of Confederation into a workable federal republic, I've been attacked like you wouldn't believe, called every name in the book. And now you understand why there are not a lot of traitors in Washington. There are a lot of them that know what we're doing, and that's why we have 2,500 to 3,000 following or even connected to our Secretary of State. One of them even been calling our Secretary, Mr. Secretary, okay? And our General Postmaster Council has over 9,000. We're talking about federal agents. Homeland Security, all those guys. FBI, all of them. Apparently they know. And so does the Department of Homeland Security. They all know this. That we're the real federal republic. It just cannot rest under a constitution, because that constitution is supposed to be the union deal, the union organization, articles of organization of the states. And since it's not, and it creates its own citizens, therefore it's not a part of any union, and it's not a part of any federal republic. It can't be, because all of the power of the people of that particular constitution is in the hands of the Senate, which does not make it a democracy. So we've been, I mean, I'm telling you, man, my name has been run through the freaking mud. I mean, through the ditch, up and down to the bottom of the ocean, back up again, up to the moon and back. It's unbelievable. And every bit of it is a complete lie. Oh, he lives in Costa Rica. I wish I lived in Costa Rica. That'd be kind of nice. I've seen it. It's really nice down there. Oh, well, he stole oneheaven.org from some guy in Australia. No, didn't do any of that. Complete lie. Total freaking fiction. It's a lie. Because everybody that pushes for a constitution is against their federal republic. And if that's the case, that makes you a traitor. It's right here. And you are yourselves pushing, by allowing that Illuminati symbol in the back of the dollar bill, you yourselves are allowing a communist regime to be in here, to be in this country, that will overturn any form of a federal republic. And imagine, okay, now you've got the front runner at the Democratic Party who is an avid socialist communist, which is Bernie Sanders, who will steal everything you got. Once you vote that moron in, you're done. In your aristocratic republic, he'll turn it into a dictatorship and a communist regime. He's already talking about re-education camps, and he ain't even in office yet. So, that being said, this is the Constitution, in case anybody, see, it talks about the law of nations right here. This is powers of Congress, Section 8. Go over there, law of nations. All right, so I'm not making crap up. So I'm going to close this one. And here. And this is the new revamped Articles of Confederation of 1781. It was amended on 2011, 2012, 2013, and 2015. And it was under, this is the new seal here that was created later. It was done under this seal, this flag, the General Post Office. This is the coat of arms. And this was the old Great Seal that we had. Then we put it in color, changed it a little bit. And then we put in the new one right here. So this right here, what it does is it operates as a type of government that is that delivers stuff like it was supposed to be. Okay, which means that we don't have any power over the states. We're in other than by reciprocity with the General Post Office. We just run all the communications. That's just what happens. This is how far we have gotten with all that, and that, with all the people, attacking us and not supporting us, and basically lying about us all over the world. National government. These are all the national governments that we've got so far that have been put in place. State of Texas, state of New York, all of them. This is a federal republic. Okay. California, Iowa, Hampshire, New Hampshire, state of Ohio, state of Utah, state of Alabama, Colorado, Texas, Mexico, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, Florida, New York, and Texas. We got about 14 or 15 here. And these are sitting in trust right now because the people that were in them before didn't get to the required elections within 6 months. So we had to stop it, put it in trust, do more training and things like that, and get this back up on track. We've been concentrating more on the union. So that being said, let's go back here and I'll show you what I'm talking about when it comes to the law of nations. These are the three forms of government. It says, if the body of a nation keeps in its own hands the empire or the right to command, it's a popular government, a democracy. So they're correct in the democracy part of it. If it entrusts it to a certain number of citizens to a Senate, it establishes an aristocratic republic. That's what you think you're getting after, you're trying to go for. And you're saying you're rejecting a democracy because this was supposed to be a republic. Remember those statements? Well, when you do that, you're saying it's an aristocratic republic. So you get what I'm saying? In other words, when they say, well, this is a democracy, this is in the hands of the people. And you come back and say, and I've heard this before, well, this is a republic, not a democracy. Okay. But you're calling for an aristocratic republic. And then the government to a single person, the state becomes a monarchy. So just remember those three. Okay, now I've gone through this and I'm just revamping or going over what we went over last week. So basically, here it is. Okay, two sovereign states may also be subject to the same prince. It goes on there. Now, finally, several sovereign and independent states may unite themselves together by a perpetual confederacy. Remember that? Articles of Confederation? Well, it just wasn't, it just wasn't adequate. We needed a stronger central government. Okay, and the United States wasn't a stronger central government because it was basically its own country, its own nation, on Manhattan Island under the Bank of New York Mellon. That's what it was. So the Constitution of 1789 was not a federal republic. Well, you're going to have a republic, if you can keep it. It wasn't a federal republic. It was a aristocratic republic. If you can keep it. Well, they've kept it very well. See, right up here. We go right above here. This is why you have a Senate, an aristocratic republic. This is what he said that they gave you, if you can keep it. Meaning they confided all the certain number of citizens to a Senate if it entrusts it to a certain number of citizens. In other words, in the hands of an empire. That's the empire. If it entrusts the empire to a certain number of citizens to a Senate, it establishes an aristocratic republic. That's what you already have. So you keep fighting for something you've already got because you don't understand the difference. And because you don't understand the difference, what's happening is you're turning it into a dictatorship. In other words, you're relying more and more on executive orders. I mean, that's all you're relying on. You're begging Trump to sign executive orders. You're turning him into a dictator. So finally, several sovereign and independent states may unite themselves together by a perpetual confederacy, which was under the Articles of Confederation, which we claimed, waited 6 months, and then signed it and revamped the whole thing. We're further than anybody's ever gone, without ceasing to be each individually a perfect state. Okay? They will together constitute a federal republic. Their joint deliberations will not impair the sovereignty of each member, though they may, in certain respects, put some restraint on the exercise of it, in virtue of voluntary engagements. A person does not cease to be free and independent when he is obliged to fulfill engagements which he has voluntarily contracted. So that's what you're supposed to do, and that's what we've been putting together. So the people that come through are not a part of the Articles of Confederation nor the government of the United States of America. Only general postmasters are, because what we do is we deliver shit back and forth on the rural-free delivery routes, and the destinations are the natural area codes, okay, that we use to stay outside of the federal zones, what they call federal zones. But they've never been a federal government. That's not what a federal government is. What they should have is a president of the union. And then they send union delegates to what they would consider a Washington, D.C. That's what should be there. Not senators, not congressmen, none of that. Just delegates. Which is what they had, and this is what they called them when they went and convened under the Articles of Confederation. They were all called delegates. Then you had a vice president, a president, and treasurer, and a secretary. They were just a union area. And they have interpretation authority because they had questions given to them. We didn't lose our interpretation authority. We're very neutral on all of it. We don't need taxes. Our government does not need taxes because it's even attached even to a greater thing than people have the ability to imagine today. And I'm not going to get into that because every time I do, it's somehow degraded and looked down upon, or what's the word? Diminished through ignorance, jealousy, and all that. So that would be casting pearls before swine. Because every time I bring that up, they attack that big time. I've also been attacked by on comments, and I don't want to bring that crap into the comment section on the channel, on the YouTube channel. So that's why all of them I just wait and I review all the comments. We've got some really nasty ones because people just jealous, I guess. I don't know. They don't want to see a federal republic work. So such were formerly the cities of Greece, such are at present the 7 united province of the Netherlands, and such the members of Helvetic body. Okay? Now, but a people that has passed under the dominion of another is no longer a state, and can no longer avail itself directly of the law of nations. Such were the nations and kingdoms which the Romans rendered subject to their empire. Generality even of those whom they honored with the name of friends and allies no longer formed real states. Within themselves, they were governed by their own laws and magistrates. But without, they were in every thing obliged to follow the orders of Rome. They dared not themselves either to make war or contract alliances, and could not treat with nations. What does that sound like? Sounds like what you have today. So, and believe it or not, the United States is under Roman law because all the power is vested in an aristocratic republic, which is the Senate. And you vote in a Caesar every 4 years is what happens. But they're all of the same bloodline. All of them are a part of or descendants of and related to Washington or George Washington. So yeah, that's all you have right now. And if you want to turn it into a Roman or a federal republic, get a hold of us. That's what we do. So the law of nations is the law of sovereigns. Free and independent states are moral persons whose rights and obligations were to the established of this treatise. So when we follow the law of nations, we're called by the Romans, their Roman aristocratic republic, we're called sovereign citizen domestic terrorists. And they say they're not subject to Rome and, all this kind of crap. If you change the terms, it starts making sense. But you're fighting, you're fighting, I want my 10th Amendment or I want my Second Amendment or whatever. You've already got that within the states. You already have the right to own private property. Guns are private property, doesn't matter what they are. And when you have a state that's trying to regulate private property, that's called communism. You have a communist state. General principles of the duties of a nation towards itself. It says if the rights of a nation spring from its obligations, it is principally from those that relate to itself. It will further appear that its duties towards others depend very much on its duties towards itself, as the former are to be regulated and measured by the latter. As we are then to treat of the obligations and rights of nations, an attention to order requires that we should begin by establishing what each nation owes to itself. The general and fundamental rule of our duties towards ourselves is that every moral being ought to live in a manner conformable to his nature. Nature. I'm not going to go there. A nation is a being determined by its essential attributes, that it has its own nature and can act in conformity to it. Okay, so you haven't formed a nature yet because you've been set up to be a traitor to yourselves. So what we're trying to do is bring you back to honor, which is why you have a blue and purple flag and the story behind it. Okay, so let's stop right here, right there, and we'll show you what the flag is. Okay, this is the story of our national flag. It's the story of Aaron the Levite and our national flag. So this is what this means. God takes the devout turned idol creator, and Yahweh plagued the people because they had made a calf, which Aaron made, and clothes him with purple and gold. Then there's all the verses behind it. And he made the shoulder a garment of gold, of blue and purple and scarlet material, and of fine woven linen. Scarlet was a type of fine and expensive woolen cloth. The failure was made into a priest. Okay, the fallen priest. Truth be told, it is the fall of a nation, but the Bible counts the fail to the detriment of their leader. The chosen priest of the Most High God fails. He gives in to the plea of the people and creates an idol and stands by while God's people worship the heartless, powerless mass. So the pillar of smoke stands behind them as a reminder of the faithfulness of God, who protects them and brought them out of the land of slavery. Yet there he stood. They were danced, and the Lord was grieved. Most interceded for the people, and they were, or Moses, interceded for the people, and they were forgiven. Then in chapter 39, an amazing, unthinkable action was ordained. God takes the devout turned idol creator and clothes him in purple and gold, and the failure was made into a prince. Okay, see? Purple and gold. Okay, now, one moment he is collecting gold and melting them into an idol, watching his children fall and refusing to lead them. The next moment he is clothed in purple, redeemed. Not only is he completely restored, God allows Aaron into the holy place. He's a priest, an intercessor for the fallen. God himself meets Aaron, and the failure in hearts hears his voice. What a picture. This is the grace of the holy God came down. And so it is with us. We lament, we fail, we create idols, we cause believers to stumble, we lead guilt-ridden lives. The Lord comes down, clothes us in royal garments, and gives us access to the holy place. We approach the throne of grace and receive it wholly. Our messy ugliness is redeemed for the glory of the one who makes us all grace accessible. The redemptive power of a Savior manifest in the fallen. It's his story. It's always been his story. And that's basically what it is. It's right here, purple and gold. So, and plus we like the color blue. So there you go. That's what that means. It's a place to come to forgiveness. So, a nation is being determined by an essential attributes in its own nature and can act in conformity to it. I tend to look at it as a place to repent for, if you know, this whole thing as a place to repent for the over the 60 million children that have been murdered since 1973 by the communists. There are then actions of a nation as such, wherein it is concerned in its national character, and which are either suitable or opposite to what constitutes it a nation. So that is not a matter of indifference, whether it performs some of those actions and omits others. In this respect, the law of nature prescribes its certain duties. We shall see in this first book what conduct a nation ought to observe, in order that it may not be wanting to itself. But we shall first sketch out a general idea of this subject. He who no longer exists can have no duties to perform, and a moral being is charged with obligations to himself, only with a view to his perfection and happiness. For to preserve and to perfect his own nature is the sum of all his duties to himself. The preservation of a nation consists in the duration of the political association in which it is formed. That's your social compact. If a period is put in this association, the nation or state no longer subsists, though the individuals that compose it still exist. The perfection of a nation found in what renders it capable of obtaining the end of civil society, and a nation is in a perfect state, when nothing necessary is wanting to arrive at that end. We know that the perfection of a thing consists generally in the perfect agreement of all its constituent parts to tend to the same end. A nation being a multitude of men united together in a civil society, if at that multitude all conspire to attend the end proposed of forming a civil society, the nation is perfect, and is more or less so, according as it approaches more or less to that perfect agreement. In the same manner, its external state will be more or less perfect, according as it concurs with the interior perfection of the nation. And this is why they keep calling you a sinner when you go to church. They keep reminding you that you're imperfect, an imperfect being in all this. And every time a communist does something wrong, you notice they always go, we all need to come together now. It's time for us to come together and unite. To share in the crappy deed that I just did. That we'll all be guilty about it, you know. We can all be guilty. So that's how they operate. Okay? And this is why they tell you this, so you won't even try to achieve perfection, to become better and better every day. They just say you're a piece of crap. That's all they say. Not good, man. It says the end or object of civil society is to procure for the citizens whatever they stand in need of for the necessities, the conveniences, the accommodation of life, and, in general, whatever constitutes happiness. With the peaceful possession of property, that's that private property, a method of obtaining justice, there are your courts, but we can't find that if you've got courts trying to murder what they call U.S. citizens and other persons. You got murder going on. With people, okay, and finally, a mutual defense against all external violence. It is now easy to form a just idea of perfection of a state or nation. Everything in it must conspire to promote the ends we have pointed out. And the active association by virtue of which a multitude of men form together a state or nation. Each individual has entered into engagements with all to promote the general welfare, and all have entered into engagements with each individual to facilitate for him the means of supplying his necessities and to protect and defend him. Okay? Now, what that means is when you have a legislature and they go outside of a social compact, then you've got a problem, because if you don't have a social compact, they can do what Virginia's doing now. Virginia's doing nothing wrong. It's the people. You guys all came together and voted in a Second Amendment sanctuary county. Why didn't you just sign a social compact? We have one up there if you want to sign it and just form something. Damn. That's all I'm saying. Do something. Do a resident declaration, form it. We don't care what you do. Just get the damn state straightened out. Y'all need to have a social compact where this legislature is bound. You only control that through the social compact, folks. You can't control that by who you put in office. Doesn't matter who's in office if you got a social compact. It is manifest that these reciprocal engagements can no otherwise be fulfilled than by maintaining a political association. The entire nation and then is then obliged to maintain that association. There it is, right there. To not go by or to not violate the social compact. And as their preservation depends on its continuance, it thence follows that every nation is obliged to perform the duties of self-preservation. This obligation, so natural to each individual of God's creation, is not derived to nations immediately from nature, but from the agreement by which civil society is formed. You don't even have a civil society yet. It is therefore not absolute, but conditional. That is to say, it's supposed a human act, to wit, the social compact. Right there. You don't have this. If you don't have this, you do not have a society, folks. Anybody calling you a citizen is completely full of crap. They're lying to you because they don't have it. Everybody here is an inhabitant. Okay? Except for us, people with us within the Federal Republic. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's a Federal Republic. Nobody else has it. And as compacts may be dissolved by common consent of the parties, if the individuals that compose a nation should unanimously agree to break the link that binds them, it would be lawful for them to do so. So if we wanted to go to a social compact and get away from whatever the hell is going on over there in the U.S., we have the right to do that. We don't have to leave. We have a right to do it. And thus to destroy a state or nation. But they would doubtless incur a degree of guilt if they took this step without just and weighty reasons. Well, that's because we wanted a social compact and we wanted an actual rules. It's chaos over there in the U.S. in all their little states within states. It's total chaos, nothing more than lawlessness. I mean, they're literally protecting a serial killer. And that serial killer is trying to get into the White House. Literally protecting her. The woman is a serial killer. She has killed over 100 people. Murdered them. Called it suicide. Everybody knew. And it's actually become a joke on the internet. Calling them the most corrupt people in this country. And it's become a joke now. And you've got those agencies over there that are all protecting her. You're protecting serial killers, folks. And they use tax dollars to do it. Some sick stuff, man. That's a sick society, if they want to call it a society. It's a sick group of people. Let's put it that way. So, and thus to destroy a state or nation, but they would doubtless incur a degree of guilt if they took this step without just and weighty reasons, for civil societies are approved by the law of nature, which recommends them to mankind as the true means of supplying all their wants, and of ineffectually advancing towards their own perfection. Moreover, civil society is so useful, nay, so necessary to all citizens, that it may well be considered as morally impossible for them to consent unanimously to break it without necessity. But what citizens may or ought to do, what the majority of them may resolve in certain cases of necessity or of pressing exigency, that's what it is, are questions that will be treated of elsewhere. they cannot or be solidly determined without some principles which we have not yet established. For the present, it is sufficient to have proved that, in general, as long as the political society subsists, the whole nation is obliged to endeavor to maintain it. What are you maintaining? You thinking the Bill of Rights is your social compact? I don't think so. It's not. It really had nothing to do with you. If a nation is obliged to preserve itself, it is no less obliged carefully to preserve all its members, which you have no member list, by the way. Nobody's signed a social compact, so there's no way of telling how many people are in your society. And this is why you have all these illegals and all this kind of crap going on. And it allows people to do this. The nation owes to itself, since the loss even of one of its members weakens it, and injurious to its preservation. Injurious, I'm sorry. It owes this also to the members in particular, in consequence of the very act of association. For those who compose a nation are united for their defense and common advantage, and none can justly be deprived of this union and of the advantages he expects to derive from it, while he is on his side fulfills the conditions. The body of a nation cannot then abandon a province, a town, or even a single individual who is a part of it, unless compelled to it by necessity or indispensably obliged to it by the strongest reasons founded on the public safety. So I'm going to go ahead and end this one. I think we're almost to an hour, and we'll start here next week or earlier in the week. If I have time, I'll go ahead and just keep reading in another show. But I'm hoping that everybody learned something this week. I know I chocked full of a lot of information. I do appreciate you sitting down and taking an hour out of your day to listen to this, because it's highly important. And let's hope and pray that this so-called bioweapon doesn't go too far across the world. And if it in fact is a bioweapon, and that we're all protected by the Most High from it. So thanks for listening, and we will see you this is the 167th broadcast, part 3, and we'll see you next week, if not earlier.